Do you ever get the impression that we're on the verge of catastrophe? Well, now the news media may share some responsibility for playing on that fear, but when you look at events around the world, it's sometimes hard not to think that we might be pushing ourselves to the brink of extinction. From man-made climate change to the threat of nuclear war, there seems to be plenty of evidence that we might be our own worst enemy. Israeli professor Yuval Noah Harari has charted our history as a species from our humblest beginnings until today, and now he's tackling the future. Thanks to new technology and artificial intelligence, will we achieve near immortality, or is the future for the human race a bleak one? So to discuss how we got here and where we're headed, I'm joined by the professor himself, Yuval Noah Harari in Tel Aviv. He's the author of the best-selling book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, as well as Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow. Great to have you on the Newsmakers. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about Sapiens and how we got here, because you chart our history as a species. That history is quite disquieting in many ways. We have done some terrible things to each other and the environment to get to where we are. Do you find it difficult to do that as a historian? Because there might be some who say, well, that is then an apology for colonialism or imperialism or all the terrible things that happened along the way.
No, I think my job as a historian is not to excuse or apologize all the terrible things that humans have been doing throughout history, but rather to understand these crimes and these problems in order, hopefully, to make better and wiser decisions in the future.
Our history as a species tends to show, and you explore this in Sapiens very brilliantly, that it's not so much about who has the facts, but it's more about who has the better story. That's how we survive, and that's how we thrive as a species. Tell us a bit more about that. Why do we rely more on good stories rather than the truth?
Well, because the basis for human power is our ability to cooperate in large numbers. We control this planet because we are the only animals that can cooperate flexibly in very large numbers. And if you look at all the great achievements of humankind, whether it's splitting the atom or reaching the moon, they are all based on large-scale cooperation. And all large-scale cooperation is based on stories and fictions and mythologies. In order to get millions of people to cooperate effectively, you need to convince all of them to believe in the same religious or political or economic story. And the things that really make people cooperate are not scientific facts. Nobody goes to war because they believe that E equals mc squared. People join forces to conquer empires or to fly to the moon because they all believe in the same God or in the same nation or in the same money. Even money is actually just a story. If you look, for example, at the dollar is not an objective reality. You cannot eat or drink or wear dollars. They have no objective value. Their value comes from the stories which the best storytellers in the world, the finance ministers, the bankers, tell us. They come to us and show us these pieces of paper which have no value in themselves. And they tell us a story that these pieces of paper, they're actually valuable. You can take this piece of paper, go to a complete stranger whom you have never met before, give him this piece of paper, and get in exchange a loaf of bread or a banana that you can eat. And the entire economic system is based on the fact that everybody believes this story. This is unique to us humans. You can never do it with any other animal. Not with chimpanzees, not with dogs, not with fish.
Now, however we got here, we got here. Anthropologically, sociologically, biologically, psychologically. We're here, it's the year 2017. There are many who have existential fears about the future. They look at Syria, they look at climate change, they look at the nuclear threat when it comes to North Korea. Where you live, there's a military occupation. There's also terrorism. The Middle East is restive. The world is on edge for many. Maybe it's just our fault as media. But I wonder, as you look forward, and you've written a book looking forward now about the species, are we in trouble right now, or is this just business as usual, and is it normal for us as a species where we are right now?
No, we are in a very unprecedented situation, and we face problems that we have never faced before. The three biggest problems of humankind in the 21st century is the danger of nuclear war, it's the danger of climate change, and it's the dangers inherent in disruptive technologies, especially bioengineering and artificial intelligence. We are now gaining really divine powers of creation and destruction. Just as according to ancient religions, God had the power to create animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. Now humankind in the 21st century, with bioengineering and artificial intelligence, gains this divine power to engineer and manufacture life. The main products of the 21st century economy will not be textiles and vehicles and weapons. The main products will be bodies and brains and minds. We are learning to design life. And the big danger, or the big question, is whether we will know how to use this power effectively. Because we are really upgrading ourselves into gods. However, we are very irresponsible gods. We don't really know what to do with all this power. Throughout history, humans gained immense power over the environment, but we misuse this power, so now the entire ecological system is on the verge of collapse. Now we gain even more power not just over the world outside us, over the rivers and trees and animals. Now we gain also power over the world inside us, over our bodies and brains and minds. And if we do not use this power wisely, then we will face an internal collapse of our own minds, just as we now face an external collapse of the ecological system.
Mm-hmm. So there are political divisions. We are stratified in many ways. There's great global inequality, economically and so on. You're suggesting we're going to also have a biological human underclass, if I interpret you correctly. How long do you think is it going to take for us to actually have this biological underclass of humans under the heel of some sort of superhumans?
I guess it could happen. It's not absolutely certain. Technology is not deterministic, and we can still do something about it. But if we are not careful, then within the next century, let's say within 100 years, we may see humankind splitting into biological castes. In the past, inequality was only political and social and economic. There was no biological inequality between humans. There was no real difference in ability between the kings and the peasants, between the rich and the poor. But now, with the rise of bioengineering, it might be possible to translate economic inequality into biological inequality. And then instead of humankind being united, we will see humankind splitting into castes or classes much more different from one another than anything we've seen before in human history.
Is that built into us as a species? Were we always destined to do this? As someone who has studied us from our humblest beginnings to now, as we've gone throughout that journey of evolution, is that inequality and oppression built into what we do, and that's the price for progress?
Not necessarily. I mean, as I said, technology is never deterministic. You can use the same technology to create very different kinds of societies. We've seen it in the 20th century, when the same technology of electricity and radio and trains and cars could be used to create a communist dictatorship or a fascist regime or a liberal democracy. The trains didn't tell you what to do with them. Similarly, in the 21st century, we can use the power of bioengineering and artificial intelligence to create very different kinds of societies. So we still have some agency. We can still try to make the best use of the new technologies. But if we are not careful, then the results could be catastrophic. The results could be greater inequality than ever before. And also we might see the creation of new kinds of dictatorships, digital dictatorships, in which all the power is concentrated not in the hands of a small human elite, but actually all the power is concentrated in the algorithms. We are in the process of creating computer algorithms that understand humans better than humans can understand themselves. And if this indeed happens, then these algorithms will be the most powerful entities in the world. After thousands of years, during which humans were the rulers of the world, authority and power will shift away from humans to computers, and most humans will become economically useless and politically powerless. Already today, we are beginning to see the creation of a new class of humans, the useless class. Just as the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century created the new working class, the proletariat, so now the artificial intelligence revolution is beginning to create the useless class. As computers outperform humans in more and more tasks, they are likely to push them out of more and more jobs. And then the danger is that you will have millions of people, even billions of people, who don't have any economic value, and therefore they also don't have any political power.
Which invariably leads to more social friction, political friction, terrorism, war, and so on. That doesn't look too rosy for the future. Unfortunately, I've got to move on, but it's been a pleasure picking your brain. The author of Sapiens and Homo Deus, Yuval Noah Harari, I thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers.